Hi there. Welcome to Brewskis with Banks. And today, my guest is a prolific composer, arranger, producer, and member of the legendary Indus Creed band, Zubin Balaporia.
Hey Gino, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here. Okay, so let's start in the beginning. How did music enter your life?
So we had a piano at home, and I used to and we were a very musical family. So nobody played professionally, but my mother played the piano. She had learned I think she gave about 6 or 7 exams when she was a kid. My dad was quite a multi-instrumentalist, though he never learned anything. So he played a little bit of piano. He was a really good mouth organ player, actually, harmonica player.
Okay.
He really played great harmonica. And he had a little bit of a background in Indian music as well. So he used to toodle around. And then later on in life, he started learning the guitar and stuff. So he was a very musical guy. Both my aunts learned Indian classical music. And I believe my grandmother was a violinist, though I never heard her playing.
Okay.
But I heard her playing harmonica once, and I was completely blown away. She was all of about 70 years old.
Wow.
And she was looking at the harmonica and she said, "Oh, I used to play this." I said, "Play something." And so she picks it up and suddenly her cheeks go pop like that. And I was I was gobsmacked. She was pretty good too.
Wow.
So we had this piano at home. Then I
Right.
started doodling around when I was about 5, 6. And I was kind of picking up tunes. So my parents said, let's get him a teacher. So this sweet Parsi lady came to teach me classical music, which I had no interest in at all at that time. And I was and am very fond of sports. So my whole thing was to be down playing cricket and football with the rest of the guys, not playing this sissy piano stuff. So I remember she used to come every Tuesday at around 8 o'clock for school and all that. And I used to be in the loo. Oh, I've got a tummy upset and all. And the whole house is banging on the door and saying, how come you get a tummy upset only on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock? So that was the con, 8 to 8:30, pretend you had a tummy upset, then 15 minutes class and then run away. So, yeah, the first 6 months was kind of fun and whatever. And after that, I really got very bored. And
Right.
I don't blame her at all. I was not really the best student in that sense.
Yeah.
But I did give some exams and I didn't do too badly. I think the initial grade, first 2 grades, I did pretty
This was
well.
Trinity?
Trinity, yeah. And yeah, at one point I even remember arguing with the examiner. Those days the examiners used to come from the UK, right? So it was very intimidating. And then he asked me to play some scale, which I hadn't learned because my teacher hadn't taught me. So I said, it's not part of the syllabus. So he says, it is. So I said, no, it's not. So he wrote, I've got the report still in red, should not argue with the examiner. And I got fired when I came out by the family. How can you argue with him? I said, hey, man, I thought it wasn't part of the syllabus.
Yeah.
How can you blame me? Anyways, so that is the growing up years. Then when I was in the 9th standard, I told my folks, I got to focus on studies, which is complete bullshit. So I got to stop this piano stuff because it's taking too much time, more bullshit. And so I quit. And then for 4 or 5 years, I didn't actually really play anything. I used to fool around at home. Whatever. Then I joined Jai Hind College and I met a couple of guys there who wanted to start a band. One of them was Sanjay Maru. I'm sure you know Sanjay Maru.
Yeah.
So Sanjay Maru was he was 1 year senior to me. He was a drummer. He used to sing. Very talented guy. And we put a band together. And of course, we did the usual IIT competitions and whatever.
What is the repertoire with this band?
Oh, okay. So, Smoke on the Water. What's Locomotive Breath, the Tull tune. Yeah. And I think 1 or 2 Santana tunes.
Who are the other band members?
So, there was a guitar player called Deepak Ahuja. And there was a singer called Shamin Desai, a very close friend of mine who passed away, unfortunately. Okay. And yeah, we had no bass player at that time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we didn't know what a bass player was. It was always wonder, what does the guy do with 4 strings?
Yeah.
But then later on, I think a bassist came in. And then, yeah, so that's pretty much how the band thing started. And I remember the first, that adrenaline buzz, the first time you play in a band and you hear that sound of the guitar and everything, And I got pretty excited about it. And I kind of figured this is really something I'd like.
And you were playing keyboards?
Yeah, I was playing keyboards. So I had a little, my dad had bought a little Yamaha, very small, one of those Porter keyboards,
Okay.
So at that time, that is the only thing I had. So that's what I was playing. And a couple of gigs, actually, I think I played some acoustic piano also. I don't know what I must have played. I don't know who heard anything. But yeah. And then I kind of met Uday because Uday was in HR college right across. And I don't know how we bumped into each other. And we started doing these talent shows. We used to back all the singers for talent show, mainly because we wanted to get to know all the women who were singing. And so we did some talent, and that's how we got to know each other. And then we even did one gig together in HR college where we did some Santana tune. And at one point, we put all these percussion instruments all around so that there was supposed to be a percussion jam.
Right.
And what we didn't realize is when we walked onto stage, we hadn't noticed that one pune had come and said, "What's all this lying around here?" and cleared up everything. So when the percussion jam started, there was no percussion. So it became a drum solo.
Oh, okay.
But that's how college bands.
Right.
So that's how I got to know Uday.
Right.
So then I started through connections. I got to play the last 3 gigs that the legendary Atomic Forest band.
Wow.
So Atomic Forest was a huge band in the late 60s, 70s. They were
like
much older
Savages,
than me.
Atomic
Yeah.
Forest.
So I was 18. They were like 40 or so, and they were just about come back together, and they played 3 gigs before winding up absolutely forever. And I did those last 3 gigs with them. One was at IIT, one was at Giant College, and there was one somewhere else. So I was kind of with them in that period. And then Uday called me out of the blue to say, "Hey, what are you doing this evening?" And, life was like that. You weren't really doing anything anyways. Yeah. Today, someone asks you, "What are you doing?" It's like a loaded question. You got to figure out, oh man, can I make the time to do this and whatever. Right. But those days, there's pretty much nothing to do here. So he said, "I'm jamming with this band called Rock Machine." I said, "Yeah, I just saw them play 3 weeks ago at Rang Bhavan." So he said, "Why don't you come over? They don't have a keyboard player. We can just jam." I said, "Yeah, sure." So where? So he says, "Come to Kolaba. There's a building called Gulistan." Mm-hmm. So, and that's where I met Dinsha Sanjana. Right. That was at Dinsha's house. So Dinsha had this beautiful studio there, fully set up. And in those days, it was like a dream. Fender Rhodes keyboard, and I walk in there and I'm looking like, wow, man, what a place and all. So I don't know what the connect was. I think Mark was hanging out with the bass player. Mark was hanging out with Dinsha in those days. So that's why they were rehearsing there. And the first day I met Mark, I met Mahesh, I met Jayesh, Uday, and that time Suresh Badricha was the drummer.
Okay. So they were already Rock Machine.
They were three shows old at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, Rock Machine was 3 shows old. And yeah, Mark started showing me original material right on the first day, So it was kind of, nice, weird, because I wasn't really part of the band.
Right.
But Mark, I think I have to give him credit. He was the guy who really, later on, drilled it into our head that, if we continue playing cover material, we would just end up like any other cover band, There were great bands before us, People, Crosswinds,
right.
So many bands, But it was mainly cover material. They didn't play too much of their own stuff because the audiences wouldn't, handle it very well.
Yeah.
And then it fizzled out. People got jobs, got married, family, and all that. So he really pushed us on that original front. And he used to be, I think, the principal songwriter in those days at least. So he showed me a tune called Karen. And the intro that I played there that evening went on to the album 5 years later. So a lot of things fell into place there. So 2 rehearsals at Dinsha's house, and then his wife got sick of us, Sandhya, and she kicked us out. So we moved to Jayesh's house.
Right.
And then I started jamming with them. And the story is that basically, if you ask them how I joined the band, they'll say we never asked him to join. He just came and he never left. My theory is that basically I was hanging out playing with them. And then I got a call from a guy I knew who was the cultural secretary of IIT at that time for Moodai to do a gig. Then he said, "I want Atomic Forest to play the professional night." And I said, "I'm not playing with them anymore, but I'm playing with this new band called Rock Machine." He said, "Yeah, sure. If you're playing with them, I'm happy to have them." So I guess they couldn't throw me out because now we had a gig.
Yeah, because of you.
So that's how the whole thing fell into place. Yeah. So that was the Rock Machine story.
And did y'all connect musically, like influences? Were you listening to kind of the similar music?
Actually, it's strange. We came from actually very different sources of music. It was mainly Western in that sense. But I hadn't really been exposed to too much rock in those days. So at home, I used to listen to whatever was like current in college and those days and all. And so there
pop
was some
hits of the time.
Yeah, there was some pop and actually virtually no rock at all. Right. So there was pop and there was a lot of jazz, but easy jazz. My dad used to like easy. He couldn't handle anything like that was a little heavy or anything.
Right, right.
So it was the swing jazz and the the sort of jazz, very basic not basic, but the popular standards.
Right,
Right.
right.
So Misty and Sway and all these tunes, were played at home all the time. And then I heard Smoke on the Water and things changed very drastically.
Right, right.
And
I'm guessing from a keyboard background, Deep Purple would have been a big one because very
Totally.
few rock bands had keys.
But you know something, I've been a sort of closet guitar guy all my life, So, for example, even the solos that I've worked out, mainly I've always worked out more guitar solos than keyboard solos.
Right, right.
So for me, the guitar is really an unbelievable instrument. I mean, I love piano, I love keys, and I
Right.
love all instruments. But really, there's something about the guitar. Like you take an acoustic guitar and just acoustic guitar and voice. The kind of emotion you can bring out with a good player and a talented person doing their stuff. So I told my dad I wanted to learn guitar, and he said, "Look, why don't you just focus on piano and get really good?" And so actually, I can't play any guitar, but then I started playing a little bit of bass, which I really love to do still, but I'm not really.
That's a different feel, right?
Yeah,
When you say you have a singer with, when you hear a singer with guitar and a singer with piano, they're completely different impact.
Totally, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the guitar thing resonated.
Yeah,
more.
yeah, it did really. Actually, it still resonates. Any day, I'd rather see like a guy like John Mayer playing just acoustic and singing. I think it's one of the most difficult things to do, really. To pull that off, to be a really good player and singer. Not a virtuoso player, but get the feel of what you want to do behind the voice, the way you want it.
Right, right.
So yeah, that's something that really. Yeah, but John Lord, Deep Purple, that Hammond B3 was like a bloody rock guitar anyways.
Exactly, distortion.
Yeah, distortion and everything. So that still gets my hair standing even till today.
Yeah, yeah.
All the old songs like Lazy and Pictures at Home and that whole Machine Head album, which was such a high energy thing. So John Lord was a really, really big influence on me. So I gravitated to the organ at that time because I really loved the sound. And also it was the only thing that would compete with a distorted guitar.
Exactly.
You can't play acoustic piano.
And the tech was not that great.
Not at all, yeah.
To have the soundscaping and all that.
So then through somebody, I got this big Yamaha 2-layered organ. It was called the YC25, I think.
Okay.
It was massively heavy, some 200 kilos, and I drove everyone mad lugging it around because obviously I couldn't pick it up on my own. And I used to shove it through a DOD distortion box and a chorus pedal, to get that whole sound and all. So, yeah, those were kind of the early days. But they turned me on to a lot of rock, the whole American blues rock, Lynyrd Skynyrd, all that stuff, they were like fully into it, and I really, when I started hearing it, I was all this great music, man. I just loved it. So Jayesh gave me Gandhi, who was our guitar player also at that time. He turned me on to a lot of stuff at that time, Little River Band, a lot of that whole southern rock feel,
Interesting.
Allman Brothers, because that was their DNA,
Right,
Mahesh
because the
and Jayesh.
guitar.
Yeah, guitar based,
But that's
harmony-based.
interesting because normally the British rock was really popular. at the
Yeah,
time.
but
So
they were listening to a lot of this because I think
Yeah.
they were hanging out with Ehsan, Crosswinds and all that. And those guys were heavily into this. So it made that. And then, of course, I discovered all the British rock bands. And, of course, Santana, Jethro Tull, Deep Purple, Floyd, all those. So Floyd was a funny experience, actually. So when I was in school, a friend of mine, one of my closest friends still today, Avinash Kothari, his dad used to go to Dubai and bring records from there. So one day he calls me, I think we were in 9th standard, so I would have been 14 years old or so. And he says, man, you got to hear this album my dad's brought. He's completely fucking lost it, It's all gee, gong, plong, some funny noises, and I'll just come over, I want to play it for you. So I said, okay. So I go there and he pulls out this album, Dark Side of the Moon. And he puts it on and it starts with all those, those sequenced noises and we're laughing like, what is this shit and whatever, rubbish, garbage, whatever. And we're hearing it over again. And 1 week later, we can't stop listening to it. Suddenly, it's like a epiphany. You just realize, wow, what is this music? Yeah. And so that was the whole, the other side, the psychedelic rock kind of space that really started resonating.
Sounds. And
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much where it all began.
So that gig at IIT was your first gig with Rock Machine?
Yes, Delhi. No, I think we did one at Xavier's before that,
Okay.
Bombay Xavier's, which we thought was a big success. And to be honest, I thought it was a lousy gig because nobody knew the material we were playing. We were playing all the stuff that we love to hear and play,
Right.
and I don't think the audience could connect with it at all.
Okay.
So, but along the way, you learn how
Yeah.
to pace
So
it out and figure.
When was this? Like around what years were these?
This must be 85 or
Okay.
86, somewhere around that.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did the original writing start to happen, and when did you all
It
do your
started,
first recording?
from the first gig actually. Even that Xavier's gig, I remember there was a song called Chains in Black Leather, which went on to the first album. And I think there was one more tune we did, original tune. So we'd kind of slip in the original tune between two very popular tunes,
Correct,
so that the audiences wouldn't get hassled.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a catch-22 situation those days because, there was no record out. There was no MTV at that time.
True.
So people, you played a song. I mean, it didn't really connect. The first-time connection on a song is not easy for everybody.
Right.
You need a little bit of familiarity.
Yeah.
And I also like to think that, in those days, Indian bands were actually a conduit for Western bands because no bands came here.
Nobody
There
was
was
coming.
not a single band that came here. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the Police came. That was even, I think, even before. when I was
83,
there.
I
Yeah,
think,
yeah. I didn't even see that gig. I didn't even know what they were all about. So yeah, aside from Police, and I think OC Bisa was one big band, and there was no other bands that ever came here.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to hear Deep Purple, Doors, Pink Floyd, Santana, Jethro Tull, you had to hear an Indian band interpreting it. So
Right.
the Indian band was your conduit to those great
Yeah.
bands that you wanted. So therefore, I think Indian audiences were not very receptive to the original music of the Indian band.
Right. They wanted to hear the hits.
Yeah. The songs that they knew
Right.
and all, Doobie Brothers and all this. Those are the bands that
Yeah.
were big. But happily enough, now 30 years, 40 years later, that's changed completely. Nobody plays. Very few bands play. I mean, a band is usually playing its own material.
Yeah.
And audiences are very happy
Yeah.
to hear that. And I like to think that in a small way, I think we opened a little door
Right.
for this to happen because we did push our original stuff tremendously.
Yeah.
And again, I give Mark full credit for that.
Yeah.
Because we were playing those songs from day one for every gig we did after that.
Right.
And it was only Mark's insistence that we continued that because it was tricky. The audiences didn't take kindly to
Yeah.
original stuff in those days.
I remember Dad used to host a show called Pop Time.
Yeah.
And first time I saw you guys or heard your music was, I think, Rock and Roll Renegade music video. Was that the first
Correct.
video y'all guys
Yeah,
did?
yeah, absolutely the first video. So I remember Louis calling us up and saying, I want you guys on my show, and Mahesh Mathai was the filmmaker for that. We knew Mahesh through the ad work that we had started doing, the music stuff. And I remember we were touring somewhere and he said, just come straight to Rang Bhavan and bring a lot of gear, so he had built this 2-level stage and I had borrowed my friend Mujib's keyboards. So I had a Roland Jupiter 8, stacked up all four keyboards and all whatever, because in those days that was the look and the vibe and all. And we did Rock and Roll Renegade for that, and I think that was the first time Indian audiences saw a rock band with long hair and
Yeah.
I'll tell you another story about the whole look and stuff.
Yeah.
So 87, 88, we got a call that this rock band Europe, the Swedish band,
Of course.
Final Countdown,
Right.
coming down to play in Bombay, and that the organizers wanted us to open. So we said, hey, great, lovely, whatever. Then that was at this Andheri Sports Complex. So about 4 days before, they said, please come for the press conference, which is at 1900s. So 1900s was this hip
Taj.
club at the Taj in those
yeah,
days. Bar, restaurant, club, whatever. So I remember clearly I was playing cricket with my friends in the building. I even remember what I was wearing, some dirty blue shirt and some dirty blue torn jeans. And then at 7 o'clock, I said, okay, guys, I have to go. They said, no, why are you going? And all, I said, no, I have to attend something called a press conference at the Taj. So they said, okay. So I went outside and I took a bus and walked from there to Kolaba. And I reached 1900s. I went to the door. They had my name. They went in. The rest of the guys were there dressed like me only. Some dirty T-shirt, whatever. And we're sitting in one corner. And these five guys enter, Swedish guys. Now, first of all, they're all 6'2", 6'3". Okay. and they're wearing full black, and they've got hair till their ass,
Yeah.
blonde, long hair like that. And Mark is telling me, something, we need to have an image, man, because nobody knows who the fuck we are. Here, there's no way you cannot tell who the band is.
Right.
So that is the first awakening that, you need a little look and an image. And the only guy in India I ever saw doing that was Remo. Remo Fernandez, guitar player, singer, songwriter from Goa.
Yeah.
He's the only guy I've seen, who walked onto stage with full makeup, hair done this way, whatever. I mean, we used to laugh. Like, look at him, man. He looks like what a bizarre looking guy. But he had it right, from day one. And I remember we went on tour with Remo in the early days, and we were still dressed like that, going on stage like that. And then after this whole thing happened, 2 years later, we went on tour again. And after that show, he came and gave us a big hug, and he says, I'm so happy to see. Look at the hair, look at the look, look at the vibe, look at the clothes, man. You guys are looking like a fucking rock band, finally. So he was a pioneer in that.
Yeah,
he
right,
understood
right.
that you needed the little look, the little
Correct.
vibe, whatever.
But it could have been because, like you said, bands are not coming here. So we're not
We didn't
seeing
know.
big bands
We didn't
play.
know.
Right.
See, there was no net. There was no TV worth talking about. There was
Yeah.
So your exposure was only when you travel. How many? Who could afford to go abroad and all?
Right.
Even getting music. How did you get music? One tape from here.
Right.
So when I was in school, down the lane there used to be a record library. So there used to be these places where you could rent a record for a day or two. So basically, you took it home and you ripped it off onto a cassette. Basically, record onto a
Record, yeah.
cassette, and then you gave the record back the next day. So it used to cost, I think, $3 or something. So I had Avinash, my friend, who turned me on to Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
Another friend of mine, Hormuz. Three of us would go to the library, $1 each, pick a record, and we all lived on Warden Road. My house would come first, so I'd go run up, record it, and then run to his house, give it to him. He'd record it, and then he'd run to Avi's house, and Avi would
So
record
everyone
it.
made their own personal copy.
Yeah, personal copy. And then next day we returned the record. So that's how you kind of built up your record collection. Then you found a friend who are, hey man, can I borrow it, mama? So that's the way. That's the way it used to work in those days. And the album cover, and we wrote all the names down. Who's the bass player, who's the drummer, who's the guitar player, and all. So everyone knew all that. Today, with MP3 and digital
You
download,
don't get it, no, on
you
the
have no
screen.
idea
Yeah,
who's playing what. And so part of the fun was that, that this great guy's playing. Look how he plays on this album, how different he's playing on that album. Knowing all the big session guys and all.
Yeah. I remember seeing like on the CD inlays, you see the brands of what instruments they've been playing in the session also. So that was the thing. I remember the Chick-Corea stuff you could see with all the Yamaha keyboards he was using. Yeah. Wow.
So those were the early days.
And then were you all still playing? No, how did the name change come about?
Okay, so what happened was 87, 88, we did Festival of in India and Russia. 89, 90, we were doing a lot of touring here, Northeast, all over. Couple of Gulf trips happened. Early 90s, we got a call from a guy called Russell Mason, who was a promoter based out of Dubai. British guy, married to an Indian girl. And he wanted to do a 5-city tour of the Gulf.
Okay.
So we did that tour, and we got along really well with Russell. He was a very cool guy, very hip and friendly, great sense of humor, like us, a wacky sense of humor, doing all mad, crazy things. So when we came back, we were saying, wouldn't it be great if a guy like Russell could manage us, because we need somebody like that, whatever. And out of the blue, Russell calls and says, hey guys, how would you like it if you...
Nice.
So we said, yeah, great. So of course he was based there. So we said, look, you become our manager outside of India. In India, we don't really need, because we had Mr. Jayesh Gandhi, a Gujarati guitar player, who better to have as a manager. So yeah, Russell became our manager, and he started really pushing us to think internationally. Now, by the time we were like already about 30 years old or so, and he was saying, you're already too old, at 30. So he said, okay, by then we were doing really well in India. MTV had come out. They were plugging us 5 times a day. You were seeing Indus Creed, a Rock Machine video on air. And he said, look, you can't go this from India to Asia and then international, whatever, because you're too old. You go straight to LA, record an album, and try and make it there. So we said, okay, how do we do this, whatever. So he said, okay, I'll work on it. And he said, guys, you have to change your name. This Rock Machine is like, you can't go abroad with a name like Rock Machine. So we said, hey, no, man, we've got this now. what we call today like brand equity and all,
right.
people know us in this country, we can't change the name. He said, don't worry, now what has happened here has happened. Once, if you get recognized there, everybody will know you here. So don't worry about that. Just do it. So I actually was very against it. The rest of the guys, 2-3 of us were not for it. 2-3 were saying it's a good idea. Let's do it now before we go.
Yeah.
So we started thinking, and I can't remember who really came up with the name, but it was like sort of Indus from India, Creed, as in, Creed.
Yeah.
So I think it was a good name, in sense it kind of resonated with from where we were. And it wasn't overtly Indian because we were not that kind of band. We were not a fusion rock band.
Exactly.
But then, this tune Pretty Child had happened and Fazal had played this lovely tabla part there.
Yeah.
So Russell was very excited. He said, listen, man, you go and play this British rock and American rock shit you guys have been doing. There are 10,000 bands in New York like this doing what you do. How are you going to get an edge in? He said, the only way you can do it is to have some Indianness in your music. So we started then thinking that, okay, let's try and work on it. We don't have to force it in. If it doesn't work, we won't do it. Even the tabla part on Pretty Child, it was our drummer, then Mark Menezes' idea. He said, tabla, and we completely shot it down.
Okay.
He said, no, man, that's that whole fusion thing. We are not that kind of band. Why? So he said, man, just try it, So we said, okay, let's give it a shot. And then Fazal walked in and played this beautiful tabla part. He played it very, very... I really think when I hear that, it's a very innovative part, because he hasn't played like a classical musician, which he was, obviously.
Right.
So this is something that I've always maintained, that, good fusion is not like, see, if you take food, for example, you take a plate and you put one bhelpuri and one piece of sushi, that's not fusion.
No.
That's just a bad mix of East and West or whatever you want to, or East and East or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But if you take a sauce from here and you mix it with something here and, you come up with something that's really unique and it has an interesting flavor, that's like really good fusion.
Right.
So people don't understand sometimes, and I think Indian musicians are a little guilty of this, particularly classical guys, because their training is so ingrained. So they will play the same way they play in a classical concert, and they will play the same way they play in a fusion concert, which I don't really think should be the right way. Like if you see John McLaughlin playing, when he plays his own stuff with Fourth Dimension, it's a different John McLaughlin. When he plays with Shakti, it's a different genre. He's not playing the same stuff.
Right.
Okay, the sound, everything there, I mean, it's him at the end of the day.
essence is the same.
But he knows that, how to weave into that thing.
Right.
That is, great fusion. And you require a little bit of, I think, experience and exposure to understand this. Otherwise, you end up playing the same thing. Then it's just like,
Right.
So,
But I think that's great. I think because of Zakir ji, I mean, Fazal also had a lot of experience, Tawfiq too. And that's why when they play with Western music, it's a little different.
They know. They know.
And it
I mean,
suits.
they are very experienced in that. And I think Fazal was touring with Minta, the Swedish band then. He had a lot of exposure to, jazz from Europe, etc. And he just came up with this beautiful part. I mean, it was so correct that we were looking at Mark like, okay, good idea. I think it's working,
Yeah.
And that song, of course, did a lot for us. It
Right.
won us an MTV Asian Award. That year, the video was made by Shubir Chatterjee, Nomita Roy Ghosh from White Light. That video was voted 9th best video worldwide. Number 1 was, I think, Michael Jackson. Number 2 was Sting. Number 3 was Madonna. So to be number 9 in that list
Fantastic.
was not a bad thing.
Right. And something an Indian band hasn't achieved.
No. So that got us a lot of mileage. So based on that, Russell said, look, it worked for here. Why not try it here? So the third album had some Indian elements in it. And we did go to LA and we recorded that in LA. And we were supposed to be there for 2 weeks to record an album. We ended up staying, I think, 3 months. And we came back finally so broke that it was like, I've got pictures of us sitting on a floor looking like hippies from somewhere, in shorts and long hair, unshaven, eating burgers from newspapers on the floor. And all.
Which studio did you know?
So, yeah, it was a very small family-owned studio called Weir Brothers. It was owned by a family where they were a musical family and one of the kids had a very big hit. So from that money, I think they had built this small little studio. And that's where Russell had put us in. And I remember the engineer there who I'm still in touch with, lovely guy, he was from Finland, UC Tegelman, his name was. And we were chatting one day and he said, I believe you guys had another name before Indus Creed. So we said, yeah, it was called Rock Machine. He said, rock machine, ha, 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 ha. You're kidding me, man. So then we said, okay, Russell knew what he was talking about. He just couldn't stop laughing. What kind of a name is rock machine, man? But there's a story behind the name also.
Right.
So when we first started, there was a organizer called Kumar. So now I'm jumping back to 84, 85.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to organize a concert for you guys. What's the name of the band? And there was no name. So at that time, they were listening to some album by this guitar player, Rick Emmett. It was called The Rock and Roll Machine. So they said the name of the band is Rock and Roll Machine. This was before I joined, so I heard the story later. So Kumar said, okay, Rock and Roll Machine, I'll make posters and all. So in those days, that's how you get these printed these posters. And then one night, everyone went out and slapped all these posters all over South Bombay. And then people landed up for the show.
Right.
So he comes, okay, guys, the poster's ready. He shows us, and it says Rock Machine. So we said, we told you Rock and Roll Machine. He said, yeah, but the poster's small. It didn't fit. So I made it Rock Machine.
By chance.
Yeah. So no choice. Now the posters are printed. So that became the name. Yeah. So then we changed the name to Indus Creed, and in hindsight, it was actually a brilliant move. Though we got a lot of flack from it, from particularly the old guys who still come and say, hey, we still prefer Rock Machine. Why do you guys do the tabla shit and all this?
They're attached to the whole thing.
Yeah. So
Great.
you got to take it with a pinch of salt.
Right. So then things started to change here, right? After that,
Yeah.
you always still make. That was probably your last album.
Yeah,
for a
the
while?
third album was the last album, the one we did in LA. When we came back, we toured a bit for another 3-4 years or so, and then around 97, 98, the MTV started dying out, and Bollywood became very, very popular. In the sense, it was always popular, but see, when we were growing up, Bollywood, you went and saw a Bollywood movie as a joke or a fun thing, you never took it seriously. It was not supposed to be serious. It was escapism, that. But then you had movies like Dil Chahta Hai and Farhan Akhtar, and guys, young filmmakers, who were making films that a younger Western audience could relate to as well, So what this shift started happening, and therefore, unfortunately, the whole Western rock thing started to take a bit of a hit. So, IITs and colleges started calling young musicians playing Bollywood stuff and all. And shows started to get less. And at that time, we were now in the mid-30s. We had, my son was born just before we went to LA. I didn't see him for 3 months,
Wow.
So families were happening and commitments were there. So we decided, we'd been together for about 18 years, I think. It was a long run. So aside from the drummers changing, nothing else changed. The rest of us were all the same.
Exactly.
So we decided, before we start scrapping and make a mess out of it like most bands do, just let's quit on a good note. And in any case, by that time, I think even our influences were changing in the sense, Mark and Mahesh wanted to stick to the more traditional rock approach. Jayesh and Uday felt that what we did on the third album was like the precursor to what should be even more Indian, more.
Okay.
So they were swinging to that side, and I think I was like caught up halfway in between.
Yeah.
So at that point, Jayesh and Benny packed up and moved to the US, and they started a band called Whirling. It was called Arms for Shanti. And they released an album then, and we kind of, for a brief period, tried 2-3 new singers, and then I remember Mark and us thinking that it's not the same vibe. Let's just pack it up now.
Right.
So we stopped.
Right.
Then I started focusing on studio work. And,
Were you doing studio work while you were with Indus Creed?
my studio work started when I was in college, when I was in SY BCom. So I was a very young guy to be playing in the studios, and there's a little story there too. So I was playing with Gary Lawyer at that time. We were like his backup band, whatever. And one day he tells me, would you like to do a recording? I said, what's that? So he said, no, you just do one thing. Come to the studio, Western Outdoor, tomorrow morning. I said, but Gary, I have no idea. He said, you'll be fine. Just come. So I said, okay. So I'm going there. I go there and I'm wondering, does one get paid for this, or is it like a free thing or what? I said, anyways, it'll be an experience. Let me try it. So I go there, and it's in those days they used to have these AVs, audio visuals music. So Gary had composed and he was singing for Forbes contact lenses, I remember. So he sang the tune for me. I made a little chord chart, and I played. And in 2 hours it was all over, and they seemed to like what I was doing, and it was fun.
Yeah.
And then he said, Zubin, this is for you. And he gave me a check for 750 rupees. Now, that was my 4 months pocket money. And I'm like, wow, 750 bucks. This is what I want to do, man. You know, you have fun, you play music and you get paid for it.
Right.
And the next week he called me back and we did a Tamil jingle for Celis soap, which I can still sing till today. And he paid me $1,000 for that.
Whoa.
Suddenly I was like the richest guy in my class.
Yeah.
And then I met Ronnie Desai, Shiv Mathur, Ehsan, all these guys. And studio work was, so by the time I was in TY BCom, I was doing like 4 sessions a week.
Oh,
and
so
I was
this is
telling
before you finished college?
Yeah. So I was, and this work was, my exams were coming in the way of my profession. So I was telling my dad, you know, that I don't want to give the exam, you know. And anyways, I was doing BCom, which was, you know, I had no interest in it. I was horrible in accounts, terrible in math. I had no acumen in that field at all.
Yeah.
And dad said, you know, and even my dad was shocked because I mean, without meaning to boast, I was really making a lot of money for a guy my age at that time, you know.
Right.
And, you know, when you tell your parents, I want to be a musician, usually there's like, oh, are you sure, whatever. But here, you know, this guy is doing all this work and this seems to be some future in this, you know. So anyways, dad said, listen, you're just finish it, just get the degree. You know, you never know what happens. So somehow I scraped through that and finished that off. So my studio work actually started but I have to say that I was incredibly lucky because when I entered the studio scene in Bombay, there was a niche for a guy like me, which I fitted in perfectly. So the other guys were much older than me. They were in their late 40s, etc., or early 40s. And the whole pop new wave thing was happening. And that was my music in those days, rock, pop, new wave. So I was listening to that. So it came to me naturally. For those guys, that was like, you know, rubbish music kind of whatever. So I was able to kind of plug that gap. So I got a lot of session work. And I had a basic ability to read charts at least. You know, I could read charts very well. I could read a little bit of music. My music reading is really pretty pathetic, but it was enough to get me through those sessions. So yeah, so the session work started pretty early. So I was really, really very lucky in that sense.
So you were there as a player, doing the session.
Totally.
You were not composing yet.
No, that started much later.
Okay.
That started like I think in the mid 90s or so. So then in late 80s, I think late 80s, Ehsan came back from Los Angeles, Ehsan Nurani. And we really hit it off. I had known him briefly, but we started doing sessions together. And then he became a producer, composer. And I was on every gig with him, you know. So we were doing like 3-4 sessions every week. And it was all a community thing. It was Gary's project, we were there. Shiv's project, we were there, you know. So it was like Mark Menezes programming drums. Shiv would play bass. Ehsan play guitar, I'd play keys. So we were doing a lot of sessions like that. And then slowly in that sense, somebody asked me to do something and I did it. And that time I got to know Shubir and Nomita from White Light. So they asked me to produce something. So I did a couple of tracks for them. So that's how the composition, production side started. But I continued playing with everyone. Because I used to really enjoy playing with other people.
So then, but when Indus Creed kind of called it quits for that time, then you really got heavy into...
then I got fully focused in. Because, you know, it was very tough to balance the band and the studio work. Because what would happen is, see, we were manic about rehearsals. That's, I think, one of the reasons why we were able to sustain also. So we didn't take the rehearsal lightly, you know. Everyone was committed to that. So if it was a 5 o'clock rehearsal, everyone was there sharp 5. And we rehearsed like dogs till 8:39 and all, till the booze came out and, you know, the party continued. But, you know, when you're doing a session with somebody else, how do you say, I got to leave by 4:30 because I have a rehearsal? You know, it doesn't work that way. So it was tough. Sometimes, you know, I was just about making it. And it came to the point where I was buying 2 keyboards, you know, so that one keyboard would stay permanently for the rehearsal and one I could use so that I didn't have to pack and run and whatever, you know. So it was a little tough to balance that out. And to be honest, when we quit, then it became a bit of a relief that, you know, because the band was our first priority, but the studio thing, see, a lot of musicians in those days either played in the studio or they played live. So the guys who played live didn't enjoy the studio thing. The guys who did the studio thing didn't want to do the live thing. For me, it was a thrill to do both. So I loved playing in the studios. I loved playing on stage. So I didn't want to give up either of these. You know? So yeah, then once the band quit, I think I got more into production and later on started my own studio. And
And then basically jingles. That was
Yeah, in those days it was jingles, but also a lot of. I used to do a lot of what do you call backtracks for singers and stuff like that. And
Right.
I think one of my greatest learnings has come from those doing those things. Like for example, I used to do a lot of backtracks for the dancer choreographer Shamak Davar.
Right.
So, I mean, he'd give me a George Michael song and say, listen, I need to sing this for a show. I need a backtrack. So we'd be going on tour somewhere in a bus and I'd be sitting with my Walkman headphones and I'd be listening to the horn parts and, trying to write, I mean, not in music notation, but at least write out the things.
Yeah.
And I tell a lot of students these days that, this is some of the transcribing is your best teacher ever.
Yes.
I mean, because look at who you're transcribing. You're
Right.
transcribing Deep Purple, Pink Floyd.
best in the world,
The
yeah.
best in the world. Producers who produced George Michael or whoever, whatever. So, and then you're listening into the bass part and you're saying, wow, that's what the guy's doing. That's how he does it or whatever. So when you do your own stuff, you got to draw from within, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you don't have something to take in, where's
How
it
do you
going to
do
come
it?
from,
Exactly.
right? So I think that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. This constant push to do cover material for recordings, where I would actually, and Shamak wanted it off the album,
Right.
So the effort was to make it as close as possible.
And there was no Moises stem split
no,
or anything.
no. So even today, now it's much easier for me to do than somebody who comes from today's. I mean, I have an assistant now doing charts for me, whatever. But the charts are not 100% accurate because he hasn't gone through that fundamental little bit of getting your feet dirty in the thing. It's a great, it's the best thing. And I'm actually very surprised because I asked people who've been in classical music conservatory training, learning classical music, where it's like, 13 hours of counterpoint and theory every day. But they don't ask you to transcribe. I don't know.
That's
why.
weird, right?
It's really weird.
But
It's
normally
really weird.
classical, if you had to play any symphony or a Mozart piano concerto or something, you would have to but the notation was there.
Notation is there.
You didn't
They
have
not
to do it.
from by ear.
Right.
So
right.
even classical pieces, sometimes you are asked to recreate a Mozart quartet piece for a jingle.
Right.
So what were you doing? You were listening on headphones and saying, okay, the violin's doing this. All right, second violin's playing this. Viola plays this. Acha, cello's playing that. That's how we learned how to orchestrate. And who are you learning from? Mozart.
Yeah.
Which better teacher are you going to get here?
Right.
So I really wonder why this is not given more emphasis in music schools. If I was teaching in a music school, this part of it, I would be giving kids, a piece of music every day and say, figure out what's the bass player doing, what's the horn part, what's the keyboard part, what's the thing, because that's how your ear gets really, really sharp. And then what happens is, see, when you're studying a chord, what is the chord? The bass player's playing the root note or whatever, and the guitar player's playing something, the keyboard plays something. That is your chord. Now, fundamentally, that chord has a sound, and a color almost. So when you start hearing it like this, when it's broken up, into 3 different parts, and then you put it together, that sound is very easily recognizable. So then what happens
your
is...
voicing,
yeah,
right?
So then what happens, you hear it, you say, okay, that's D7 flat 9. Because you know the sound. Okay, you may not know it's D, it may be B or E or whatever if you don't have perfect pitch. That's not important. But you know the sound of that, the color of that chord. And that's then makes it much easier when you're writing parts or charts, whatever. I think it's a fabulous exercise. Every musician should do that to develop their production.
Yeah, but you're right about that. Like the looking at it, like not theoretically, but as a sound and a color. And then you can paint accordingly, as they say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So jingles were happening, recordings. You were doing all kinds of recordings. Were you doing any theater stuff like that?
Yeah, I did some soundtracks for theater. I did Sound of Music, the entire thing.
Whoa.
Now see, fabulous learning experience.
Right.
Because transcribing Sound of Music by ear. Every part, every string part, every horn part, everything.
Right.
Down to the last detail. And I used to sequence on a Korg O1W. Your dad had the same keyboard, I think, FD. And I think I broke my back with sitting on that keyboard. But yeah, it was a great learning experience. I did Sound of Music. I did My Fair Lady. You won't find better music to learn Broadway
classics,
stuff from, classics. Then I did Jesus Christ Superstar for Raul Dikuna. So the rock side of Broadway.
Right.
And I did one more. I can't remember.
So that's some serious arrangement stuff,
Serious,
right?
serious, yeah.
But this is where you were sequencing everything. Did you dub musicians on anything?
Nothing. There's no money for anything. So you had to come up with stuff,
Right.
So I'll tell you, for Sound of Music, I remember for Edelweiss. So Edelweiss has got Christopher Plummer playing acoustic guitar and singing in the movie itself. So obviously it's just guitar and voice. Now, where am I going to find a guy to play like that? In those days, no money to pay musicians. I didn't have a budget. So it was done from keyboard.
Right.
But what I did was I went behind the mic and I took a guitar and I just moved my hands, because I don't play guitar really, and I just moved my hands and we recorded squeaks and the sound of, your shirt brushing very slightly against the back of the guitar as you play. And we just put that into the track. And the next day, there was a guitar player at Farhad Wadia's house where I was doing this recording. And he comes and hears this and he says, wow, who's playing guitar? That's really nice. I said, hey, that's from keyboard. He said, no way, man. I'm hearing all these squeaks and all. No guitar sound on the keyboard gives that. So I said, okay, job done.
Oh, that's so smart. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
damn.
this is the way
Yeah.
we had to innovate.
So you wanted to make it as authentic as possible.
Absolutely.
Right.
And, because you don't have, your innovation skills are much better. So the first keyboard I had was a DX21. I knew that keyboard better than I know any of my keyboards today, because it was the only thing I had,
Right.
And you had to, when you went for the session and the director said, I want this kind of sound, and it wasn't there on that keyboard, so you had to know. And the DX7 was this FM digital synthesis which had just come out, so that whole analog thing had gone of twisting knobs, so there was pages after pages, you were pressing buttons, and I mean, the manual was like you had to be some nuclear scientist to understand it. It was really some spaced out diagrams and algorithms and all crazy shit you had to learn. So, but that was the thing. That's the only thing you had. And again, there's a story with that keyboard too. So, finally, at that point, I had this cheapo keyboard which I was using, and I realized that I needed a pro keyboard. And Ranjit had just come back from Singapore, and he had bought all this DX7 and the D50 and all the classic keys. And I said, man, I need this now. Oh, sorry, that came later. DX21? No, DX21 was there, yeah. So I wanted to buy a better keyboard then. So I told my dad, I said, listen, there's only one place. There were no shops in India, right? You couldn't go into a store and buy anything in those days. So we used to hear about these two shops, Tom Lee and Swee Lee.
Of course,
Tom
Singapore
Lee in
and
Hong Kong and Swee Lee in Singapore. So Ranjit told me, go to Tom Lee. There's a guy called Billy there in Hong Kong. You meet him, just give him my reference, and you can check out. So I said, Dad, I'm thinking of going to Hong Kong. So Dad said, chalo, I'll come with you. Yeah, we'll go. Because Dad used to doodle around. I said, great, let's go. So for a week, we went to Hong Kong. So Monday morning, we went to Tom Lee. And I walked into a room with 30 keyboards. And I just could not fucking believe it. I said, man, look at this. It was like, Nirvana. It was some paradise, So I started doodling this, that. And Dad's also doodling, and listening on headphones. He said, hey, come and hear this, or whatever. 6 o'clock, they came and said, okay, we are closing the shop. So we left. Tuesday morning, back there. Wednesday morning, back there.
Right.
Thursday morning, the guy asking me, are you going to buy anything or what? Friday evening, 5:30, before they threw us out, I bought the Yamaha DX7 2FD and I came back. Monday morning, Dad goes to office. His friend drops in and says, "Arey, you to Hong Kong gaya tha? You went, saw Victoria Falls and also." Dad said, "No." "Acha, you saw this?" Dad said, "No." "Acha, you saw this?" Dad said, "No." He's saying, "To kya dekha tu Hong Kong mein?" He said, "I saw Tom Lee." So he's saying, "Ye kya hai Tom Lee? Even I want to see here. 5 days you went to Hong Kong and saw this Tom Lee. What is this Tom Lee?" So anyways, that was my first.
No, it was legendary.
Yeah,
I mean, I used to go as a kid with Dad, and Mum used to drop Dad off at Tom Lee.
Right.
And then she used to take me out somewhere.
Yeah, correct.
And pick him up in the evening.
Absolutely.
And the same thing. End of the trip, he bought a keyboard.
Yeah, we were just starved, man, in those days.
Yeah.
And, I'm just thinking, today, we're so fortunate. You can pick up the phone and call Shalu Music or any distributor, and the guys will send a keyboard home to you or to the studio.
Right.
I mean, you won't get that service in the West today unless you're Mick Jagger or some big guy, whatever.
Right.
So we're very, very fortunate. We've swung from this extreme poverty into being very spoiled now,
We're this close to Instamart keyboards.
Absolutely. I mean, anything and everything is available now. So we're, I think we're very blessed. And I feel good because, at the end of the day, you need a proper instrument. Any, and the scene has changed so much. Everybody's here now. All the great, products, brand names.
Yeah, you're getting the latest of every brand.
Everything. We are actually better. Like I said, we actually get home delivery of great stuff.
Yeah.
we are blessed in that sense.
That's true. Okay. So the recordings are happening, and that is like Bandwagon?
When did that happen? 2007 or so, something like that. I can't remember the exact date. But we used to record at Famous all the time, right? Famous Studios
Galactica.
at Mahalakshmi Galactica, yeah. So the building next to Famous Turf Estate was being built in the early 90s.
Okay.
And I used to walk up to White Light office and see that building coming up. And I used to always think, wouldn't it be great to have a studio here? Because it's right next to Famous and whatever. And that's how it actually panned out.
Oh, shucks.
So Ronnie Desai called me one day and said, hey, I want to start a studio here. Would you be interested in doing it with me? I said, I'm on. Where? And he says, this building next to Famous. I said, my God.
Wow.
So we started Bandwagon together in about 2007, 2008. Mm-hmm. And then in 2017, he wanted to move out. So I bought him over and then it became mine. So it's been running now for the last...
Yeah. And fantastic. I think it's one of the first studios I've seen in Mumbai that had a window in the control room.
Yeah, see, the thing is that when I started playing in the studios are pretty shitty. Then things got better, better gear, better design sense. But the thing is that the guys who ran those studios, they didn't understand one thing, is that, see, you can have the best equipment in the world, but if your environment is not right for the musician, by the end of the day, what are you recording? If your source is not great, then you can have the best gear. What are you going to record? Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at is like the minute you moved out of the studio, it was a pokey little room and you're sitting like, on one dirty chair eating your lunch while there's a toilet right next to you. It's not a conducive place to be creative in any sense, right? There's no chill, there's no vibe, nothing. Yeah. So when we built the studio, I actually fought with our designers, Mujib and Vijay. And I said, look, I don't mind making the studio a little smaller, but I want the chill area to be like a place where you can really relax and feel good. If you feel good, you're going to make great music, or you're going to write great lyrics, or you're going to write a book, or whatever you want to do, And the other thing was, I always felt this thing, about being cooped up in the studio the whole day. So you got in around 10:30 and then you left at 8 o'clock in the night. And then, I remember actually now that you mention it, there was a period where I was recording practically every day and I forgot what the evening looks like, And one day there was a break and I went down and I was like, wow, man, this is what sunset and all looks like. Because every day you were in at 11 and you left at 10:30, 11 in the night.
You walked in the morning, left when the
so the day just went by, So I asked Mujib and Benny, I said, listen, is there any way we can put in a window so we get natural light coming in? And they said, yeah, sure, we can do it. So I find the fatigue level is much less when you have natural light coming in and you have a curtain to always cover it if you don't want it.
I remember because I think that was I've never seen that in a studio in Mumbai.
I don't think
it was the first studio as soon as you walked in on the right.
So even our new studio that I've done the same thing here. In fact, I've put 2 windows this time.
Great.
That's very important. And even here, I fought with them for the outside space. They kept saying we can extend it 1.5 feet here, and we'll have. I said, look, the control room is a decent size. Yeah. I want the outside to be, a place where you can really hang and relax. But we'll come to that.
Yeah, nice. So now, Indus Creed is coming back together. Because I had this chat with Jay, because he was been a part of it.
Correct. So I think it's 2010, 11, somewhere around that time. So Uday and Jayesh had moved to New York. Then Jayesh was very happy in New York. Uday, I think, was getting bored or whatever. I don't know. And I think he wanted to make a movie at that time. Okay. So he and his wife Charu moved back to Bombay. And one day he calls me and says, let's put the band back together. And I said, no, man, I can't do it. I've got 2 kids now and I've got a studio to run and, it's too complicated for me. So I said, you guys bash on. So he said, you sure? I said, yeah. And I really can't commit the time. Touring, and I was thinking, how the hell am I going to manage? Also, in those days, I had a very bad back problem.
Right.
So I was thinking, carrying keyboards all over the countryside again now with this back issue and all. So I said, no. So then October 17th, I think I remember the date, Hard Rock Cafe, Indus Creed coming back after 10 or 12 year hiatus. And 2 weeks before that, Benny calls me and says, listen, man, we're in really bad shape. So just come in for this one show, because some of the songs we can't do without you and whatever. So I said, yeah, sure, one show at Hard Rock, no problem at all. So I came and then they didn't ask me to leave. So I stayed again.
Similar story.
Same story.
Wow.
So I told Benny at that time, I said, listen, man, he said, no, just come, and it was such a blast to play, all those songs again. And the place was packed to the rafters, and all the old camaraderie and everyone hugging each other and, so happy to see you guys back and all. I said, man, now this is not something I can take lightly.
Yeah.
So I told Benny, I said, I can't carry stuff and all. He said, look, we'll take a roadie along with us. Why are you worried? Yeah. So we started touring. My helper, Jayaprakash, now comes along with us everywhere. So that made life much easier. But I'll tell you, when we started touring again, it was like the old days. I was used to this big keyboard setup and all. So I had like 3 keyboards, a mixer, and then I was carrying my own drum throne because of the back issue.
Right.
And 2 stands and all. And Naveen, who was our manager, used to help and all. He's saying, man, are you crazy? Or you can't take all this stuff and all. Who's going to pay for the excess? I said, this is what I come with this.
Yes.
There's no other way.
Yeah.
So we were lugging all the shit all over, and then slowly he was convincing me, hey, Zubin, 3 keyboards, make it 2. I said, okay, chalo, we'll manage without this. So I gave up 1 keyboard, and then stands we'll get from the keyboard. See, there was no stuff even then, vendors were not providing everything.
Right.
So now it's come down. I'm depressed. I'm down to 1 keyboard.
But do you use backline? Do you get additional keyboards for backline?
So if I'm doing like the gigs we do for Serendipity and stuff, they pretty much supply me with whatever I want. For the Indus Creed gigs, I was endorsing Kronos at that time, Korg. Now, they didn't have the Korg anywhere, so I was forced to take it.
Yeah.
I'm now endorsing Roland. So I've just started with Roland only about a year ago.
Right.
So they've been very good to me. So they're trying to provide what I need wherever I go.
Yeah,
but
nice.
a lot of the shows are like in the Northeast. It's not easy to get keys over there and all. Guitars backline is still easier.
Right.
And there's always this tension of your stuff not loading there, and see, most of the gig bands that are doing R&B stuff and all, you can pretty much take any keyboard with a basic good EP sound, organ, acoustic piano, string, patch. My sons are programmed from ground level up for the song with and that's something I did from day one, splitting the keyboard, volume, patch, whatever. I mean, to the point where I would have the same patch on both sides, but same sound for those who know what a patch is. But one sound would be volume louder, so that if I had to solo, then I would be playing this side.
Right.
And so even till today, the song Fireflies, which we do, the Indus Creed song, it starts off with a keyboard little motif. So that's programmed on 1 octave. And then, because that's only with acoustic guitar, so it has to be at a certain level. The same motif comes back after the first chorus, but it's now with the full band.
Yeah.
So I have the same patch, the same sound, 1 octave down, but lowered, so that it plays the same way, but the volume is like about 4-5 dB higher, so that, higher, because you wanted to cut through a little bit. So I was very particular about this kind of stuff, programming stuff and patch changes and all that. So that's something that came naturally to me. I kind of enjoyed doing it. Even in the old days, linking the 2 keyboards, the DX and the D50. So you had 2 patches going. And then when you patch changed from here, it sent a message to the other keyboard to change the patch there. So you had a map programming, so that when I press this, go to 72 or go to 74 or 76. So all that, I really enjoyed that side of, the programming side and stuff. So
would it connect with the old MIDI cables?
MIDI cable. MIDI cable, yeah. So the DX, D50, and then remembering to put off the cable when you you wanted to work as a split, right? You wanted to, let's say, piano here and strings here. You didn't want them together.
Yeah.
So you had to put the transfer thing. I forgot to put it off. Then you had a problem.
Oh, shucks.
So,
but that's crazy. That's like, that attention to detail translates into the sound of the show, right?
But I was very particular about that. My sound was always, and I got a lot of good feedback for that. People used to come and tell me that, when you're, like, we used to do John Lennon Imagine, but we did a rock version of it. And it used to start with this huge keyboard pad, which was called, what the hell was it called? Stairway or something. Staccato Heaven. That was the patch on the D50. You played it and it was like this, this huge big thing. And it started with, and you played at Rangbavan with Roger's PA.
Yeah.
And when that started, it was like big. So I think that got us a little mileage, in the sense we sounded nice and big and professional. And we worked on a lot of things. Even, again, I credit Mark for that, this moving on stage and enjoying yourself on stage,
Yeah.
not just standing in one place and playing like,
Right.
you know, hey, whatever.
Right.
See, it depends on the music. Like, let's say you say, take a band like Floyd, all right? Their music is such where you can't imagine Gilmore
Yeah.
running around on stage. He doesn't need to do it.
Gilmore
you know?
doesn't have to do a Van Halen.
He doesn't have to do it. But Van Halen has to do that. That's
Right.
Van Halen's music, you know. He can't stand in one place and play. It doesn't, the music demands
Right,
that, you know. It's
right.
part of the sound. It's part of
Yeah.
everything. So, you know, that was something we focused a lot on because our music was like that.
Yeah.
And because the two guitar players were very into all the guitar harmony stuff, you know, Skinner and Allman Brothers
Yeah.
and all that kind of thing. A lot of the earlier stuff had that guitar harmonies, and it was wonderful to see three guitar players up front
Yeah,
playing.
yeah, yeah.
So we used to do Thin Lizzy, you know,
Right.
all the guitar parts
Yeah.
which were done in harmony, and
Yeah.
it made a big difference. You know, your three guys standing up front playing
course.
those guitar
Right.
harmonies, and so the look was important. It's important.
Yeah.
And again, I say it depends on your music. You know, if your music doesn't demand it, then it looks forced.
Yeah.
But there's some music that
Yeah.
asks for it.
But that work ethic and taking every little thing seriously.
Yeah, we did.
No
we
matter,
did.
it was fun.
Yeah.
You all had fun.
Yeah.
But you all were very,
We were
very
very-
serious.
we were very- and that's actually the reason why we stood apart also, because most of the other bands were very lazy. I mean, we were also lazy,
Yeah.
but at least we had a work ethic, you know, in that sense. I don't know how it came by, but we were pretty conscious of that. You know, rehearsals were important. Get your parts down. Try and nail the song exactly the way it is. I mean, even okay, sound engineer. Nobody traveled with a sound engineer in those days. Okay, then one day there was a Russian band that came down, fusion band. I forget the name, Arsenal or something like that, and it was amazing. I mean, Russian bands in those days were, you know, from that pre-Glasnost era. This is like, you know,
Before
communist
the-
USSR,
yeah,
not
USSR,
Russia. Okay.
right.
And these guys, killer band, great bass player, two keyboard players, and they were doing a whole dance routine on stage with, like, you know, moonwalking and all, and playing fabulous stuff, you
Yeah.
know. And the sound, we couldn't believe the sound. And Mark's looking at me and saying, you know, they're playing on the same PA that we play. It's Roger's PA. How the fuck are they sounding like this? Because we don't sound like this, you know. And then we figured that they've got their own sound engineer. The guy knows the gear, he knows the songs, he knows the tunes. So you're not hearing us, you know, typically in those days you went for a show, guitar players playing solo, nobody can hear the guitar player
Right.
because, you know, the sound guy doesn't know that this is
Right.
happening and he's bloody having his drink or looking somewhere, whatever. So that's when we decided we need to have our, now one more guy touring, organizer saying, hey, hello, what is the sound engineer? Now we have to put up one more guy, fly one more guy, all this shit, you know. Not fly, in those days it was all trains and all, but even then. But we started going with our own sound engineers. So Kaizad Bhaba, Vijay Benikal, Shantanu Hudlikar, these were all our sound engineers in those days. And then it became fabulous because, you know, these guys knew the material inside out. So they knew. So it wasn't like that guitar solo fading up 5 bars after the guy had played.
Right.
He came on and it was like boom.
Yeah.
And then lighting. So, you know, we started figuring out that some guy doing lighting abroad obviously knows the song, you know. So we started going with a lighting engineer. But this was way back, you know, in the 90s. And the guy used to do lights for us, Clyde, who I know till today. He's like a brother to me. Yeah. He was also a fabulous architect, designer. So he had designed the whole stage with, you know, perfect elevation, height and everything. So I remember when we were going somewhere, you know, and in those days it was typically you never got paid and something would go wrong and all this shit used to happen all the time. And Mark and I were the two guys who were the schemers, you know, that we got to get better by doing this, do this. And Mark says, you know what, Zubin, we got to have a contract, man. We have to have something on paper. They're discussing things on phone and all. And then, you know, so we said, okay. So we sat in the train coming back from Delhi and we said, you know, this is how we'll write the contract. So it was a 1-page contract. When we finished, that contract was 18 pages long because, you know, things were getting added on. Gear, what we want, the stage, how should it be, this, whatever. And stage, the whole stage elevation, the diagram of the stage, that this is the height, this is the podium, this is whatever. And this is like, you're talking 1990, you know. So what would happen is when that went to the organizer, the organizer was like, what is this, man? I better get my act together because this is a pro act, you know.
They took you more seriously.
Absolutely. And not only that, what would happen is, if the gig was on Saturday, Vijay Benikal, sound engineer, Clyde, light engineer, and de facto manager of everything, and Jayesh Gandhi, manager, would fly out Friday evening. And Jayesh's thing was superb. He understood the game so well. You'd land at the airport, I land at the city there, and the organizer would say, "I'll take you to the hotel." He would say, "No, take me straight to the venue." So already the organizer's like, "Okay, man, this guy's like seriously pro, Go to the venue and start. This is not going to work, man. This is the band will not leave." And it was actually shit show, because the guys were so disorganized in those days that nothing would be ready. So Jayesh's job was to tell the guy, "You're not going to have a show. I mean, I'm here and I'm telling you the band won't leave, because when I call them and tell them it's not ready, they're not coming. So you better start moving, on it or whatever." So Jayesh was very good with that.
Amazing.
So our contract, I remember we used to say 5-star hotel only. So one day I was telling him, a lot of people who say we can't afford 5-star. I said, "Jayesh, don't put 5-star. Just write a clean 3-star, 4-star hotel." He said, "No." He said, "See, today you're at a 5-star hotel. You're sitting by the pool. You're drinking beer over here. And the next organizer has come to meet you. You are giving out a look and an image. This is what you expect and what you get.
Yeah.
And that's why you get what you get. You won't get 5-star, you'll get 4-star. You ask for 4-star, you'll get 2-star. So don't change anything. Please just let it be like that." So it was a very good learning lesson.
Yeah, great one.
Yeah. Perspective is important.
So everyone had roles in the band, right?
So Jayesh was the manager. For a brief period, I was the accountant. Very bad idea. But the only reason I became the accountant is because Mr. Uday Benigal was the accountant before me, and you don't want to know what he was doing with accounts. So I remember going to the CA who was tearing his hair out. "Arey, he has written all the expenses in the wrong side, and there's something in the..." So Penny said, "Hey man, Zubin, take over accounts." I said, BCom was not my strength at all. So we had some roles that everyone did, because there was no manager, there was nothing.
Right. So now also, Indus Creed's come back. You have a new rhythm section.
Yeah.
And also the music was a little different.
Yeah,
quite different to what it was.
But all the albums were different. This is a funny thing. It had a core sound. See, the first album, Rock and Roll Renegade, was written out of pure innocence. That was the songs we sort of were fiddling around with. And I think they resonated. Top of the Rock was a tune, I think, that went down very well.
Yeah.
Rock and Roll Renegade, the lyrics, about being this guy who doesn't want to conform to
society.
Society or whatever your parents want you to be. That was big, In all the IITs and all, they used to love it, because that was the whole thing, The rebellion was the nature of a guy who's like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever. So I think those songs really hit home. The second album, The Second Coming, by the time we were listening to a little bit of more prog rock, Kansas, that kind of stuff. So I think you'll hear a lot of influences of that on that album. That album, barring Pretty Child, didn't do that well. I mean, I think the songs became long and complicated for reasons of trying to be flashy and brilliant, whatever, in that sense, more than... so some of the songs are really funny now when I hear them back. They're like 7 minutes long, or there's like more like a prog rock kind of thing.
Right.
I love those tunes, but I mean, I think aside from Pretty Child, the rest of the songs didn't really go down too well. The third album, I think, was a transitional album to what should have been the fourth album then, which never happened. And it had these Indian influences. It had some nice... We re-released Pretty Child on that album also, because that album went international. The fourth album, by that time, 10 years had passed. When we had all grown in our headspaces of different music influences. And we had a great new rhythm section with Jairao Kavi and Rushad.
Yeah.
Two very, very strong players.
Yeah.
They vibed really well. They connected well. And we started writing stuff, and I think Benny and Mahesh did most of the songwriting on that. And they wrote some really... I mean, I think on that album, songs like Dissolve and... which are the other ones?
No Disgrace.
Fireflies and No Disgrace. I mean, I think those songs have a lot of character, a lot of character.
Yeah.
And there's, I think, a little more mature.
Yes.
They are complex, but they're not complex for the sake of being complex.
Right.
They're complex because the song is asking for that complex. The complexity is the nice part of the song. And it's not a tune where you're going mad trying to figure out things.
Exactly.
It's listenable,
Yeah.
and yet for the musician who understands, they know that there's a little gravity in the material as well. So I think it's got a nice mix of that.
And also your production sense was different. in that.
Yeah, but see, by then, we had I had my own studio, and also that all that had developed, and we were used to producing our own stuff anyways. But on the mixing stuff there, so we did the album, and then we were wondering who should mix it. And then we were listening to Porcupine Tree, the great British band. And Benny's saying, man, listen to the sound. I mean, it wouldn't be wonderful if a guy like this could mix it. So he said, let's look it up. Who's this guy? So we read this name, Tim Palmer. So we do some research and we find that he's done practically every big band in the world, including Pearl Jam's 10, I think.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, which is, I think, in the top 50 top albums.
Yeah.
He's also credited with the songwriting and production on a huge hit back in the 80s called, I think, I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight.
Yeah. Paul Young?
I am not sure who the artist was, but I couldn't be. Maybe I've even got the song wrong. But it was a big hit. So we look him up on the net. We got his email, and typically I think here we're somewhat a little, what's the right word, apprehensive about working with people from the West because we feel that they won't want to work with us because they're busy or we won't be good enough or whatever.
Right.
So we've had this. I mean, my generation has had this baggage. Okay, and Benny and I were discussing, and we said, what the hell, we'll send him an email, ask him. At best, he'll say no, so what's the big deal? Or he'll be too expensive, whatever. So we sent him an email saying, this is what we're all about. We love your stuff on Porcupine Tree, and would you be up to that? And we get an email back that very evening saying, hey guys, I checked you out on the net. I absolutely love what I'm hearing, and I would love to mix this album. So we said, wow, this is fantastic. And here's another lesson to learn, that people, it's our stupid baggage to think that they don't want to work. They're just hungry for work as everyone else is, and they like the project, and you can pay them their fee. They're up for it.
Right.
So we scraped some. He was expensive. I mean, he's a top guy.
Yeah.
But he mixed out of his own studio, and we did a cost comparison. If we had booked a big studio here in Bombay, paid a senior engineer, I think we would have ended up
same thing,
just paying the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So we got Tim to mix it, and I mean, it was just unbelievable. Because see, here what happens is, today you're doing a jingle, tomorrow you're doing an audiovisual, third day you're doing a song for something, fourth day you're doing an Indus Creed song. They don't work like this. They are doing. Ranjit told me the same thing. Ranjit Barot.
Yeah.
He said, man, when I tour with John G, he said, I come back, then I have to do some film dub. So that's how I keep my house, running.
Exactly.
He's saying the other guys, bass players who
Etienne and
and they're touring with some other band, playing whatever. So that's their focus. It's not music. It's not, here we are multitasking because we got to keep the bills, going. So even when we went to record in LA, we found even the studios were like that. The studio that recorded rock stuff. They didn't record jingle the next day.
Right.
Jingle studios recorded jingle stuff. The dress was that way, the vibe was that way, the people were that way.
Right.
So the engineer in the studio was trying to get some metal bands because he liked metal. The metal guys came and said, what? Have you recorded any metal stuff here? Let me hear something, So he said, no, I haven't, but I want to. He said, no, this, we need the vibe. We need that whole space,
Right.
So these are all kind of learning experiences. So when you're very focused on one thing, you get very good at that thing, because you're doing that every day.
Right. No, but that was great. And I don't, usually you're listening to the music you like, and very rarely I find myself listening, especially like over 10 years ago, listening to local bands, music.
Right.
But your guys' album, I used to really enjoy. Of course, because I knew Jay, I knew what happened.
And you played some of the stuff too.
Yeah. So, I mean, once live we played, and it was a lot of fun to play. But I just liked listening to those songs, It was fantastic.
Yeah. I actually really enjoy playing those songs too. And I mean, Fireflies, in fact, was a tune which Uday wrote for Whirling Kalapas, which was his acoustic act.
Right.
And when I heard it, I just loved the song. And I said, why can't we play this as Indus Creed? And he said, no, man, it's not an Indus Creed kind of tune. So we sat and we said, let's try and work it. And it worked beautifully in that, And then Tim mixed it so beautifully.
Yeah.
And, I understood a lot of stuff from him also. We sent a tune to him where I had played this very sort of intense clav part right in the beginning of the song. I was very proud of it because it was like very hip and I thought it was very cool.
Yeah.
And he sent the mix back and the clav part wasn't there and there was one other part which was not correct. So I sent a message to him saying, Tim, great mix, just two things. We seem to have lost that clav in the beginning and this one thing. So he fixes that thing, sends the mix back, still no clav. So I'm saying, maybe we didn't send it to him or what? Why would it not be there? So I sent him another message saying, hey, we're still missing. Did we not send it to him? So his reply was really cool. He said, Zubin, I thought I removed it actually because I thought it was too intelligent a part so early in the song. Now that made me think that this guy is not a sound engineer. That is a given. He's fabulous. But he's an intelligent guy who's sculpting the song. You know?
Right.
So he was so correct that it was a flashy chop. It wasn't really doing much for the song right up in the beginning. You know? And he said, if you want, I'll bring it back. I said, please don't. I'm very happy to keep it off.
Right.
And also what happens is, when you have another guy mixing, he's not bothered with that. See, at the end of the day, much as you try to wear your producer's cap when you're listening back, you are listening to what you've played. Automatically you slide into that mode. And then you're thinking, I did this nice thing here. It's a little too soft. I should push that up, whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, you don't need to do that. That's not doing anything for the song. That's just your little
Ego.
Nice ego, but not required.
Right.
The engineer who comes in third party carries no such baggage. His only interest is in making the song the best it sounds.
Yeah.
So he's not spend hours putting that one thing 1.5 dB up just because you played some nice lick there. That's for you to enjoy when you listen on headphones, or that some keyboard player will catch it. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not, So he just did an unbelievable mix of those songs.
That's like kind of the role of the producer when producers work with already famous bands, no? To kind of have this thinking and this kind of advice.
You need a vision. I mean, good producers will make or break a band. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good producers are weight in gold. I mean, we've seen the stuff like Quincy Jones did with Michael Jackson's tunes and all. Who knows what those tunes would have sounded like, if there was some other producer.
That's true. That's true. And of course now you're quite active with the Serendipity Arts Festival, and we've been collaborating a lot on those sessions.
A lot of
and
fun there,
another one coming up, big one coming up.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your relationship with Serendipity.
So 2016, I was doing a movie project with a music director, and she was asked by Serendipity to be a curator on that event. And she was, I think, busy or whatever, and she kind of asked me if I would take that over from her, kind of go under her name, but I'd do the production and arrangement. I said, yeah, sure. So that's when I met the whole Serendipity gang for the first time. So I can't remember who the artists were or whatever, but anyways, they kind of liked what I put together. And I remember meeting Smriti, who's, I think, the CEO or whatever her title is. And next morning for breakfast, and she said, we loved the show, we loved what you put up and all, and we'd like to do things with you in the future. I said, great. Then this whole corona should happen.
Right.
So 2-3 years flew by. And then, 2023, they called me and said, we want you to be a special projects curator. So how Serendipity Arts Festival happens in Goa every year. This is the 10th year. It happens in December every year, over 8 or 9 days, 10 days. It's a multi-arts festival. There's everything from music, dance, drama, theatre, food, books, merchandise. I mean, you name it, they have everything. And it's a fabulous festival. Over 10 days, they take over almost 25 venues in Panjim. And you have all this wonderful art happening from 11 o'clock in the morning till 10 in the night. You can wander around and see all these great musicians, theatre artists, etc. performing. So usually on the music side of things, they have 2 curators. So that year, I don't know who the curators were, but I asked me to be a special projects curator, which meant I was not curating the whole festival, but I had to just bring in 2 concepts. At that time, I was doing some gigs with Zakir Bhai. So I said, why don't I ask Zakir Bhai to play, and they were ecstatic. I mean, to have Zakir Bhai playing for your festival, it's fantastic. And there's another, again, story here. So I spoke to Zakir Bhai and his manager, and he said, yeah, let's talk about it. And the festival happens in December. I was talking to him in June. And then there was no feedback. So I called his manager, Nirmala ji, and she said, he's so busy. I keep sending him messages. He's not confirming. I sent him a couple of messages. He was touring with Shakti at that time. So I didn't receive any. So I thought maybe he's not interested or whatever. So I put that concept to bed, and I pulled out 2 others. It was Indus Creed and Friends was one concept. The other was a gig called Celebration with Ranjit, where we did all the 90s pop funk stuff. So those were the 2 gigs that were on course. And then early November, Zakir Bhai, Nirmala ji, his manager, calls me and says, has Zakir Bhai spoken to you? Because he thinks the show is on. I said, hello? So she says, just see, he thinks he's spoken to you, but he's forgotten. So what do I do? So I said, okay, then let's talk. So Zakir Bhai calls and says, didn't I call you to say I'm on? And I said, no, you didn't. He said, oh my God. And okay, so can we do it? So I said, but which date? He said, I've only got the 15th of December free. And that was the opening night where Indus Creed was supposed to open the festival. So I called Serendipity, and I was thinking to myself that, they're going to say that, look, we told you to do two. So if Zakir Bhai is on, then we have to bounce one. And I was not prepared for that because that wouldn't be fair. Zakir Bhai is Zakir Bhai. But at the end of the day, people have, committed, put in work here. Very happily, they said, no, let's do three. Then you do three. I said, oh shit, now my work has just suddenly tripled. And they said, but Zakir Bhai, we have to open the festival. I said, yeah, with that I'll talk to the Indus Creed boys. It's okay, we'll play the next day or whatever. So that was the first, my first, whatever you want to call it, encounter with Serendipity. Zakir Bhai, we played, and it went off fabulously. All three gigs were very, very well received.
Yeah.
So next year they asked me to come on board as a full-fledged curator for the event, along with Bikram Ghosh. He was my co-curator. And you played for that.
Yes.
The Fado concert.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the thing for me there is, what I like about them is, they like to push the envelope on these concepts. They want to do exciting, different stuff. So if I tell them classical gig, whatever, they'll say, okay, nice. But if I tell them I've got this guy from here and he's playing piano from underneath and one guy's hitting the strings with a fish or something like that,
It's like, ideal for Goa, the fish.
This is sounding really exciting, So they want to push the envelope, reinvent stuff, come up with unique stuff. And I think that's great because I think all art needs that, you need that development. You can't do the same thing over and over again. It has to, for art to progress, it has to develop. Now, you may like it, you may not like it. That's subjective. That's immaterial. The important thing is it must evolve.
That's
it
great.
It must move.
Yeah,
Otherwise, what's going to happen? It's going to die.
Yeah.
So my thought in all these concepts was to try and do something unique, different. So, for example, last year the gig that you played. Now, again, that Fado gig came out of Zakir Bhai's gig. So when we did Zakir Bhai's gig, I called Zakir Bhai and I said, Zakir Bhai, we are doing this classical music fusion is great, but we're playing in Goa. Why not we take one Fado tune? Fado is Portuguese music which is popular in Goa.
Yeah.
And reinvent that and try and do it. So he said, wonderful idea, but who'll sing? And also, long story short, we got Nadia, a lovely singer from Goa. And he was so excited and, and she came for the rehearsal. And I was telling Sanjay, our guitar player Sanjay Devecha, I said, Sanjay, I'm going to be writing charts till 5 minutes before we go on. And we're doing the rehearsal one day before, and she sings beautifully. We play the song. Zakir Bhai is looking at me and saying, Zubin. And I know we're in trouble now. Why are we doing only one song with this lovely girl? Why can't we do another song? I said, Zakir Bhai, the show is tomorrow,
Yeah.
So what, So Nadia knows some 200 fados backwards. So she said, yeah, we can do this one or we can do this one. And I'm looking at her like, hey, hello. Guess who's going to be writing the charts? So she pulls out another tune and Sanjay and I are going out on YouTube. We're listening on headphones and we're sketching the chart out.
Yeah.
And then we got some basic idea and Zakir was saying, yeah, Zubin, make the chart tomorrow morning. 7 o'clock in the morning, I've got up, I'm making the chart, whatever. Again, I'm telling Sanjay, man, I'm going to be making these charts to do it. So that's how the father thing came. And funnily enough, that concert, just as we're about to go on, Zakir Bhai tells me, Acha, Z-Man, he used to call me Z-Man. Z-Man, what are we doing for the encore? So I said, I don't know, but we're going to... You know what I'm thinking? I said, oh, here we go again. And he pulls out some tune which I've heard years ago. And do you think we can do this one? I'm sure you know it and all. I said, I've not played it for 20 years and all. Write one quick chart. No, so here am I 5 minutes before writing a chart as usual. So the whole Fado concert, when we did that and it went down so well. And I was thinking, there's potential to develop this into a full-blown concert. So that's the idea I presented to them. They loved it. So it was called Sempre Fado, only Fado, always Fado, Antique e Nuovo, old and new. And there I was pushing, see the Fado gang came from Goa, right? Omar and Nadia were the singers and Franz and Sherwin. And they've done this music from the time they've listened to it. And I kept telling them that, look, you, like I was saying about fusion, you cannot come to this concert and play it the way you guys played there. That's beautiful. And you do it superbly. But that's not what we want to do here. We want to reinvent it. We want to make it hip. So for me, the idea was that if a young kid walked in and heard this and said, hey, Fado, that's my dad's music, but I like this, what they're doing. Then the form is going to develop. It's going to stay.
Yeah.
You know, people will listen.
Newer
people will enjoy.
generations, yeah.
Some people won't like it. Traditional guys won't. That's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's somebody told me this nice statement. There's great art has come from dissent also.
Yes.
You know, so people don't like something, they push you to do something different, whatever.
Right.
Everyone doesn't have to love what you're doing. It's okay to be disliked. So, a musician, get used to it.
Yeah.
So we did it. You know, we changed stuff around.
Yeah.
We were there, and
Yeah.
we invited the legendary Braz Gonzalez to
Right.
play. And you'll remember that rehearsal, which we did in Goa.
Yeah.
Braz is 92.
Yes.
When he came, I said, guys, we'll do Braz's song first so he can rest. And whatever. Braz finishes his tune. I said, Braz, you're more than welcome to hang. But if you're tired, you want to go. He said, I'll stay for 15, 20 minutes. He stayed for the whole rehearsal.
I know.
And when we had coffee, he comes to me and says, who did all these arrangements with the strings? And all? I said, oh boy, here we go. So I said, that would be me. He said, I love it. I've never heard Fado like this. You know, it makes me feel invigorated and alive. And he's 92.
Right.
So I said, you know, my job is done.
Right.
Now I don't give a shit who says what. If Braz Gonzalez tells me that he
Yeah.
likes what he's hearing,
Right.
that's it. So the attempt has always been with Serendipity to push the envelope, reinvent, try and do something different. And we've struck a wonderful relationship.
Yeah.
We went to Birmingham. You were
Yeah.
part of that.
That was
too.
a fantastic tour,
And we
yeah.
did what six events in 4 days or
Yeah.
something like that. You know, with including a workshop and
A jazz gig.
a jazz gig, master class, you know, drummer,
Thumri.
Thumri, you know, all that. So you know, for them, the Goa gang, it was tough in the beginning. You know, they said, you know, this is how we do it. I said, no, then we won't do it that way. We'll turn it. Let's not do it that way. Let's do it. So they understood after a while, you know, that this is and they got it.
Yeah.
With the Thumri side, we did Thumri in the chamber, where I did exactly the same thing with Thumri. Again, it was tough because the Indian classical singers came with that background.
Yeah.
So I was pushing them also that, look, you know, I know you do it this way and I know this is the way it's traditionally done. Let's not do it that way.
Yeah.
Because it's beautiful and
Yes.
you do it very well when you do it
Yes.
there. But that's not what we are about. We are trying to do something different. So I think that's been the aim and attempt always to push the envelope, try and... And I learned this from guys like Zakir Bhai and Ranjit, you know. They're crazy, man. You know, 5 minutes before you're going on, they want to do a new song or whatever. They're always trying to push themselves to do something that'll give you that little edge of, that little bit of butterflies in your tummy.
Yeah.
But knowing that, you know, it's good. You'll
Yeah.
crack it at the end of the day. But no lying, no chilling out and saying, we do the same song again.
Right.
You know.
So that keeps things fresh, I think,
does,
and
it
makes
does,
it
yeah.
exciting
Yeah.
and probably presents, like you said, the same thing but newer.
Yeah.
You know?
Zakir Bhai has changed arrangements with me on a project, on a tribute to Vanraj Bhatia, 30 seconds before we're going on stage. We're standing in the wings, and Rakesh Chaurasya, flautist, brilliant bansuri player, he's supposed to start some tune, whatever. And the compere on stage is announcing our names, and the legendary Zakir Bhai, whatever, playing along with him, Rakesh, whatever. And Zakir was saying, you know what I'm thinking? And when he says that, you know, you know, instead of Rakesh, why don't you set it up with I'm thinking, no, man. And it's one rehearsal, you know, there's no chart because there's been no time, whatever, and all. So it's that thing about, come on, you know, I'm going to push you a little bit, and you know, you'll do it. I know you'll do it. It was never done in a bad way, like let me see, I can do it, but never ever.
From love.
Never.
It was
From
like,
love. He understood who he was playing with and how much to push, but he always pushed you in a nice way to just that little extra. And Ranjit is another guy like that. You know? Whenever I'm playing with him or doing a project with him, I tell him, shall we do this? No, let's do this version. You know, this is more. I'm saying, Ranjit, there's no time, man. No, we'll do it. You know, so it's nice to people to goad you into that.
Exactly.
You know, push.
But that, like, it's part of the evolution of
100%,
things, no? Yeah.
100%.
Because playing safe all the time can keep things stale
Absolutely.
sometimes, you know? Yeah. Evolution. Evolve.
That was what it was.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Zubin. Thank you so much.
know,
Hey,
my
one more
pleasure.
thing I wanted to discuss, which is outside of the music zone. You've been clicking a lot of pictures.
Photography has become a big passion.
Right.
Yeah, so that kind of started, you know, Shubir Chatterjee, the guy who made the video, filmmaker, White Light, had been a close buddy of mine. He's a fabulous guitar player, actually. Played in one of Calcutta's biggest bands called High.
Okay.
For all the right reasons, it was called that. And I think they were a pioneer band. You know, they were playing original material way back in the late 60s, early 70s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Nandan, you know the drummer
Yeah,
Nandan,
of course.
yeah. So Nandan, Lou Hilt,
Right.
Shubir, and keyboard player who unfortunately passed away, Dilip Balachandran, I think
So
his
this
name
is
was.
before Shiva?
Yeah, before Shiva.
Right.
Yeah, they were one what do you call it? One generation
Yeah.
before Shiva. So Shubir is a brilliant filmmaker and superb photographer. Actually, I really keep telling him he should be doing exhibitions, which he's being lazy about. And we are very fond of Western classical music, both of us. So we did a little trip to Germany, like a little pilgrimage of Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, all the great German composers. And he was shooting on this small little Sony camera, and I just got taken in by what he was doing because he wasn't allowing the camera to take decisions. He was, moving stuff, adjusting stuff,
Right.
which I later began to understand at that point. And then when I was looking at it, I was thinking, man, I saw the same thing, but it's not, he's done something here, and this is not. This is not some kind of trick Photoshop kind of stuff. It's just knowing your art
Right.
and knowing your instrument, the camera.
Yeah.
So that kind of excited me, And I had this iPhone 4 and I started shooting on that. And he was, sort of guiding me, yeah, but shoot from this angle, try this, see if you bend down and then it looks like whatever.
Yeah.
So then I really got excited about this. So when I came back, I said, let me buy a camera. So I bought the same camera which he had, a Sony RX100, very nice little camera. I still have it. And the funny thing is, my dad was a very good photographer actually,
Okay.
and from the film days. He used to develop his own films at home.
Wow.
In fact, his bathroom was actually the dark room. Then he got married, so then the dark room went out and went back to being a bathroom. But he was very good. Whatever, he knew his stuff. I came, into photography after the whole digital generation had started. So I was never really exposed to film and stuff. So yeah, I bought this camera, and then I'm very fond of trekking and travel. So I did this trip to the Amazon, 7 days in the back of Beyond. I mean, it was a lifetime adventure in a little canoe and a tugboat and whatever.
Ooh.
And I was shooting with this little camera there. And I came back and I showed Shubir some of the stuff. And he said, yeah, this is good. Why don't you print a few things? And I printed, and that's, it's amazing when you see your photograph on print.
Yeah.
There's some excitement there.
Yeah.
And I kept shooting. And then, after 2-3 years, he said, something, to be honest, I thought after 6 months, you'd get bored, but you seem to be really bitten by the bug. So get a better camera, a better lens. So I had to sell my house, car, my family. But I'm happy I did that because the lens and the camera he recommended, that became my mainstay for the next almost 7-8 years. So then I shot extensively all over India on travel because I like traveling. So now travel became so much more exciting because you came back with all these photographs.
Right.
Then I took the plunge and did an exhibition. So I've done now almost 6 or 7 exhibitions.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm setting up my own gallery now, which will be open to anyone who wants to rent it out.
So the pictures are going to be up in the studio?
Yeah, they will be. So the new Bandwagon, the old Bandwagon studios will now close down. And we're moving to just one building down. We're on the 24th floor. We have a lovely view of the race course. And I'm doing one room, which is a pure studio with a nice big size. And the other room is what I call a multi-art facility. So it will gravitate from being an art exhibition center to a rehearsal pad to, let's say you want to do a book launch, or, you can use the room for anything. You want to do a small photo shoot, you want to do a video, anything. So we're designing it so that it can mutate within 2-3 hours into whatever space you want.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to do, Gino, over there, and you're going to be involved in this, is that, when I was 18, 19, your dad used to have these, Louis used to have these workshops at the USIS.
Right.
Sunday morning. And we used to all go. And all the great players of Bombay used to come and play there. And it was wonderful to hear this music and, learn and experience. And I mean, I was too young to play. And I mean, I couldn't play jazz anyways. So, but I want to start this thing again, this community. Because what's happened is we're all playing, but mainly we are playing for projects.
Yes.
Right? I want to bring back that fun thing of playing.
Just for playing.
Just for the heck of it. So there's nobody telling you, play this music or play this tune. You bring 2 tunes you've always wanted to play or your own tune.
Yeah.
And we come and play, we hang, we have a couple of drinks, we enjoy some good food, we laugh, gas, talk. And I want to bring back all the guys who've retired, like guys like Shubir, Hosi Nanji, lovely bass player from people. So bring this, because there's no pressure. You can play whatever you want,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, if you don't want to come, don't come, whatever. The whole idea is to hang, play great music, and not like a jam. You come prepared. So make the charts or whatever it is, give the songs out to everybody.
Yeah.
So when you come, it's not like, one guy soloing and everybody just playing.
Yes.
It's not like that. It's a song.
Nice.
It's a little concert for yourselves and your friends.
Yeah.
So what better way to enjoy your life, to hang out with friends, play great music, drink some good booze, eat some great food. I mean, that's it. So I really want to get this. And now with this space, it's my space. So I can really do this.
Yeah.
So, once in a month or something,
Sure.
set a date, Saturday
Yeah.
night, Sunday night, whatever, whenever it's convenient to all. Just come and hang and play, and play all the stuff you want to play.
Yeah.
And, I was in Japan 6 months ago. Somebody took me to this place called JR's. JR's is a club, really small. It's just got one long bar table and about 10 chairs. There's no food, there's only booze. Only musicians come there to hang, or those who love music. So there's 2 keyboards set up, so 2 keyboard players can play. There's a bass player set up and a guitar player amp. The drum kit is on top of the bar because there's no place. It's actually on the corner, right on the top. And a couple of the guys who are playing really tall, they're bent down like this because their head is touching the ceiling. And it's open, it's a jam.
Yeah.
So you come and play.
Right.
And, I saw some crazy players there, and they were just playing fun stuff, what they wanted to play. And they were trying all these things and making mistakes. And this is something that Ranjit told me years ago. He said, why is everyone so scared of making mistakes? I mean, how the hell are you going to get better if you don't try something? You're not always going to be able to crack it. You'll make a mistake. So what's the big deal?
Try and play beyond your capability.
Absolutely. And I saw it there. The guy's trying to do something different. Some of it is sounding like shit. Some of it is sounding great.
Right.
But this is a space because no one's going to, there's no audience sitting there and watching you, listening or eating food or asking for requests or some idiot from the advertising agency telling you what song you should be producing for their product or whatever.
Right.
So, this is what I want to do. So here's your space to do your thing. Bring out whatever's there. All that little angst which you want to come out has to come out here.
Right.
And if it's fueled with all the right booze and food, I think
of course, and it'll bring the like-minded people together.
Absolutely,
who are into the
and
music.
open house, come and play. Come and play. Come and play. Come and watch.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
part of this thing is also a little give back from my side. I really feel that I'm very blessed for whatever I've been given. I mean, in this country, to be born and brought up for all of us, the way we've been brought up, thousands of people, millions of people in this country have nothing.
Yeah.
We are God's gift here to have the kind of life and family and support that we have had. So I feel at my age now, I'm going to be a senior citizen next year.
No.
So there's got to be some give back. You can't keep taking and not giving. So, for example, I'm very happy to give this gallery at no cost to young artists. Come and put up your photographs, your dad's stuff.
Yeah.
Put it up there and call people. I won't charge you. Nothing. It's my give back to you. You do your marketing, call people whoever you want. I'm giving you the space on the house.
Right.
So what will happen is it will encourage people, because as a young guy in art, you are constrained by, you cannot afford a gallery, you cannot afford to play on some big stage. You can, cost is a constraint. I'm taking that out. I'm giving it to you. You come, show your stuff. The important thing is you must have a platform to exhibit.
That's the thing. It's a platform for people who don't get the opportunity. To
So for
That's
anybody,
fantastic.
musicians, artists, anything. I mean, whatever you want to do.
Fantastic.
So I'm very excited about this.
Can't wait for this.
Yeah,
So-
I think in a month or so we'll be operational by
Okay.
November.
So-
You'll be rehearsing there.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll plan this out.
Super.
Great.
Yeah.
Zubin, thank you so much, man,
Gino,
for
it's
doing
been
this.
my pleasure.
It was a great chat and looking forward to more gigs.
Always, my friend, always.
Thank you. Thank you.